Welcome back, everyone, to our series on Sefer Bereishit. Today we're going to study Parshat Vayigash, and I'm going to use Parshat Vayigash not to study the Parsha itself, but again, the underlying theme of Sefer Bereishit. I want to follow a theme that might explain what I like to call sinat chinam. The brothers clearly don't get along. They resolve their differences in Parshat Vayigash. In Parshat Vayigash, Yehuda comes and meets Yosef. There's a big clash. It's over Binyamin, but the brothers have finally learned their lesson. And Yosef and Yehuda finally get along with each other. The brothers get together and everything ends up fine. But it took 20 years to resolve the crisis. What I want to explain today, what I like to call is good reasons, or the basis for baseless hatred, or good reasons for sinat chinam, good reasons for baseless hatred. I want to take a model that explains what's happening in Sefer Bereishit and give everyone a good reason for the bad behavior. There's no doubt the brothers are hating each other. I want to give a good reason what causes the hatred. They have good reasons for it, and how a simple misunderstanding can cause terrible strife between brothers only because they misunderstood a basic concept. What's the idea? All through Sefer Bereishit, there's a filtering process which we're going to refer to as bechira, being chosen. As we all know, Avram is chosen, and from all of Avram's children, he has many children, only Yitzchak is chosen. From Yitzchak's 2 children, only Yaakov is chosen. When we get to Yaakov, all of Yaakov's children are chosen, and the choosing process is over, and everyone born to Yaakov, that's the Jewish people, no matter how good or bad they are. Meaning, for 3 generations, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, there's a filtering process going on, we'll refer to as bechira, until we reach the end of that process. When bechira is over, the Jewish nation begins. We don't know why it took 3 generations. Kabbalists have lots of reasons for it, different midot, but that's the given. That's what's happening in Sefer Bereishit. Who makes those decisions? What I want to claim is bechira is only up to God. God makes the decision to pick Avram from all the other people to begin the nation. He changes Avram's name from Avram to Abraham, announces my name is El Shaddai. At the same time, when he changes Avram's name in chapter 17 to Abraham and announces my name is El Shaddai, he also tells Avram, Sarah's going to have a child. Changes Sarah's name to Sarah from Sarai, and she'll have a child. His name will be Yitzchak, and the brit will be with Yitzchak. The decision that Yitzchak is in and Yishmael is out, that was God's decision, not Sarah's. Sarah is going to make a decision because God decided that they can't grow up in the same house together, but the decision that only Yitzchak is chosen, to the exclusion of everyone else, is God's decision. Even though God told Abraham in the beginning, your offspring will get this land, God now decides not all of Avram's offspring, but only the offspring from Sarah. What's that imply? Maybe because there's only one matriarch or patriarch. In other words, what would have happened had Sarah had more than one child? We don't know. Would they both have been chosen, or maybe only Yitzchak? We'll never know because Sarah only had one child. But it makes sense that we would think that every patriarch should have one matriarch. When it comes to Yitzchak, it's very simple. Yitzchak has one wife, 2 children, they're both twins, and in theory, there's no reason why both Yaakov and Esav, Yitzchak's 2 children, shouldn't be chosen. Now, God told Yitzchak, there was that famine, remember, in the beginning of Parshat Toldot, God told Yitzchak, don't go down to Egypt, stay here in the land. Why? Gur ba'aretz hazot, in Perek Chavchet Pasuk Bet, or Perek Chava Pasuk Bet, Pasuk Gimel. He tells him, Gur ba'aretz hazot, stay in this land and I'll bless you. Why? Ki lacha u'lezaracha atenat kol etzot ha'el. You and your offspring are to get this land. Yitzchak has every reason to think that both Yaakov and Esav are chosen. Why should he think otherwise? One matriarch, 2 children, twins, they're both chosen. And therefore, at the end of his life, assuming both children will be chosen, I need a family leader, which we'll refer to now as a Bechor. The firstborn, by default, goes to whoever born first. But all through Sefer Bereishit, happens quite often that the Bechorah, the leadership of the family, doesn't go to who's born first due to their behavior. But Yitzchak is assuming that both Yaakov and Esav are chosen. Therefore, assuming he's going to die soon, when he's getting old, he calls Esav to bless him with leadership. Not you're the only one chosen, but rather you're going to be the leader of the family. Therefore, his plan is to bless Esav with wealth. Remember, you should be wealthy, and you should be the head of a nation that other nations respect. But in the family, you should be the leader of your brother, and your brothers, your siblings will bow down to you. In other words, the blessing that Yitzchak planned to give Esav, which later Yaakov took through trickery, which is in Perach Zayin, in chapter 27, verses 28 and 29, that's not a blessing, you're the only one, but rather, you're the family leader, you should be wealthy, you should take care of the family, you should be the head of this nation that will develop to a nation that other nations will respect and bow down to. But within the family, you're the leader, you're the leader of the family, and everyone else should bow down to you or respect you. And therefore, Yitzchak's vision is that Esav would be the Bechor. Later, Yaakov would get a blessing of maybe you can sit and be a teacher, be a judge, sit and learn all day, or work in education, but running the country will be the job of Esav. Which makes a lot of sense for Esav to think that way. Who gets involved? Rivka gets involved, because there's something Rivka knows that Yitzchak doesn't know, because when Rivka was expecting, as we all know, she went to God, and what did God tell her? In the beginning of Parshat Toldot, Shnei goim bevitnech. Vayomer Hashem la, God told her, that's not two brothers, that's two nations. And the older one will serve the younger one, V'rav Yavot Tza'ir. Meaning, only one child will be chosen, it'll be the younger one, but that'll be two different nations. That's not two brothers, that's two nations. So for some reason, God wants Rivka to know that they're both chosen. I'm sorry, Rivka know the only one is chosen, and Yitzchak thinks that they're both going to be chosen. Again, why the drama? Why the setup? If we have time, we'll talk about that later, but that's not important for now. What I'm getting at, there's a logical reason why Yitzchak wants to bless Esav, and there's a logical reason why Rivka thinks it's not good, and she wants to make sure that Yaakov gets the blessing because she had that prophecy earlier. So again, I have a logical reason for that behavior, and basically, what's going to happen, Yaakov can't be blessed because of leadership, because he's an Ishtam. He has and Esav can't be blessed because he's a Isadeh, etc. Who receives the blessing? Yaakov has to dress up like Esav to receive the blessing. In other words, to be the Jewish people, we need the hands of Esav, but the voice of Yaakov. Akol kol Yaakov and Yadam Yidei Esav. That's going to be a big biblical theme about what the nature of the Jewish people need to be. We need to be people who work the field, but at the same time have the voice of Yaakov by the hands of Esav. Later, that's going to become David HaMelech. But again, that's a wider theme in Tanakh. I want to get back to our theme of the reasons for the hatred among the brothers. Now I have a good reason why Yaakov and Esav are fighting. If I go back to the first story about Yaakov and Esav, about buying the Bechorah, in that story, what does Yaakov want to do? Yaakov wants family leadership because he knows how bad his brother is. And therefore, he takes a situation where Esav comes in tired and is willing to sell the Bechorah. He wants the Bechorah. Esav shouldn't have the Bechorah, but they're both assuming they're in the same family. And the question, who's going to be the firstborn, not who's going to be the only one. It turns out later on, only one's going to be chosen. That's going to happen in Parsha Vayetze. Okay. Now it gets complicated. Why? Because Yaakov gets married, and he has lots of children, but more than one wife. We know Yaakov has two main wives and two maidservants. What I want to suggest is that when the children are growing up in Sefer Bereishit, there's Leah's children, and Rachel's children, and the maidservant's children, the Bnei Hashpachot. Everyone is assuming there's only room for one matriarch, meaning Yaakov is chosen, he got the blessing, he gets the name change later on, but the question is going to be, who's the matriarch? And there's two candidates. There's Rachel and there's Leah. Now, my assumption is Yaakov is assuming that the matriarch, the chosen one, is going to be Rachel, and therefore there are two tribes, Yosef and Binyamin. What's my proof? What Yehuda says in his speech in Parsha Vayigash, quoting his father, he says, talking to Tzatna Paneach, not realizing it's Yosef, begging that he have mercy on his father. He tells a story about Yaakov and his children. He says, Atem yidatem, quoting his father, Kishnam yadali ishti. Quoting his father, Yehuda says, my father said, you should know my wife had two children. Who's his wife? Rachel. Therefore, in the eyes of Yaakov, the matriarch, and the only matriarch of the family is going to be Rachel. She has two children. Who's going to be the Bechor? Yosef. Binyamin will also be chosen. But therefore, Yosef gets a special colored coat because he's the Bechor. And the other children, he'll take care of them. Like he gave blessings to Keturah's children and to Hagar's children. But the chosen one will be Rachel's children. And therefore, Yaakov has every reason to favor Yosef and Binyamin. And imagine if that's Yaakov's conception, his idea that Rachel's the matriarch and there's only two tribes. When he is assuming that Yaakov is dead, he can't get over it. He's mourning, but his only ray of hope will be Binyamin, and that's why Binyamin, he'll watch him like a hawk. He won't play tackle football. He won't let him go with the brothers anywhere. Binyamin is the last ray of hope that Yaakov has because he's sure that Rachel is the matriarch. What do Leah's children think? Leah must be the matriarch because God is screaming, basically, that Leah is the matriarch. Look what God did to make sure that that's happening. We call that again hashgacha pratit. In the eyes of Bnei Leah, Leah's children are sure that they're chosen, and that's what God's telling them. How did Laban pull off that trick at the wedding night to get Leah in? That's got to be the hand of God. Why does Leah have children immediately and Rachel doesn't have children? God wants. How come Rachel dies as soon as she returns, and Leah stays alive? In the eyes of Leah's children, they're sure they're chosen, and there's 6 tribes. Reuben would be the leader, and now everyone else in the family, as long as Yosef and his brothers are playing with Bilhah and Zilpah's children, that's fine. The second he starts dreaming, whoa, that's a danger to the Jewish people. Now, they realize the father just doesn't get it, but Avram didn't get it about Yishmael, Yitzchak didn't get it about Esav. It's the same pattern. They know more than their father. And the father can't get over the fact that Rachel's not the matriarch, but they know better. Therefore, they're the chosen brothers. Now, with Leah's children assuming they're chosen and arguing with the father in that regard, it makes sense why Reuven is aghast when what? When Rachel dies, instead of taking Leah to his tent, Yaakov takes Bilhah to his tent, if we follow Rashi in that story, which explains why Yaakov's son, Reuven, is protesting what happens after Rachel dies. In other words, why does Yaakov take Bilhah and not Leah? To make sure that won't happen, Reuven will sleep with Bilhah to make sure that Yaakov can be together with Bilhah and have to take Leah instead. But again, with that, it explains Reuven's behavior not as an act of protest to honor his mother, not an act of incest or something like that. So what I'm trying to show you is that all the children are growing up with this idea there's only one matriarch, and it gives all the reasons, it explains their behavior, why Leah's children are sure that Yosef is a danger. Especially his dreams are a danger. We have to get rid of him because of his dreams, as they say when they plan to sell him or when they plan to kill him. And it explains Yaakov's behavior, why he's favoring Yosef. And that's how the family's growing up. As they were growing up, Yosef had 2 dreams. Remember? His first dream was all the brothers in the field together gathering wheat, and they're all bowing down to his sheaves. The second dream is up in the sky. There's 11 stars and a sun and a moon. And the 11 stars and the sun and the moon are all bowing down to Yosef. Assuming one of the stars may be the northern star, but they're all bowing down to him. The brothers interpret that dream, oh, he's dreaming, he's the only one, but that can't be. Yaakov doesn't believe the dream because the sun and the moon, everyone is assuming is the mother and the father. That's what he says. And it's only a dream, but it's a dangerous dream. And that leads to all the hatred between the brothers, as the story explains. What I want to suggest is, God in the dream to Yosef was trying to tell the brothers something that no one ever dreamt of. If you follow the dream carefully, what was God telling the brothers? Everyone's arguing over who's the one matriarch. If you look at the second dream of the 11 stars, God's telling them the 11 stars are the 11 brothers, and Yosef is the 12th brother. Yosef is the Bechor. God's telling the brothers Yosef is the family leader, but with 11 other brothers, meaning there's 12 tribes of Israel. No one ever dreamt that, because why would Bilhah and Zilpah's children be chosen? They're only half-bloods. God was trying to tell them, you're all chosen, and there isn't only one matriarch for Yaakov. Yaakov can have lots of children from different wives, and they're all chosen, because it's nothing genetic. It's about being a nation, beginning a household, beginning a nation. Once you're chosen with responsibility, but it's not because of your genetic descent, it's because God's decision. You have a job to do. And to be God's model nation, I need children from different mothers. I need children from different backgrounds. Different flag. You have to work together. You have different identities, but God wants 12 tribes. When does Yosef finally understand his dreams? When he was sold or sent down to Egypt, he forgot his dreams. That's why he calls his son Menachem, his first son, because God sort of abandoned me. He still believes in God, but he realized he's not chosen. The fact that he's down in Egypt and sold, Yosef understands Leah's children were right, that Leah's the matriarch and his mother Rachel is not the matriarch, and that's his life. He lives there. In the meantime, he becomes an expert in divination. He figured out the butler and baker's dream. He figured out Pharaoh's dream. Got himself a nice job. Now he's an expert in dream interpretation. 20 years later, when the brothers come down and bow down to him, now he remembers his dream. But what does he figure out? Something he didn't realize beforehand. Now that he understands dream interpretation, and he's been in Egypt, he knows the sun and the moon in the dream were not his father and mother, but rather the sun is a symbol of Egypt, because remember the sun god Ra is a great Egyptian god. The Egyptian calendar is solar. The moon is a god served in Mesopotamia. And the moon is a symbol of Mesopotamia in general. To this day, they still have a lunar calendar. And who's bowing down to Yosef? Not just all of Egypt are coming to get grain from Yosef. All Mesopotamia is coming to get grain from Yosef during the famine. And who were the sun and the moon in the dream? That's got to be Egypt and Mesopotamia, who come down to get food. Now that the dream is beginning to make sense, who are the 11 stars? Those must be his brothers. What was God trying to tell him? God was trying to tell them, you're all chosen. God wants 12 tribes. He wants Leah's children and Rachel's children and the Shfachot all to work together. They're growing up arguing who's the only one, and God was trying to tell them, you're all chosen, but you have to figure it out on your own. Right? God can't tell them that. God has to allude to that through the dreams, but the brothers have to figure out their dreams on their own, and that's going to happen through that story. Little by little, Yosef realizes when he sees his dream, he's the leader of the family, and it's his job to reunite the family, and he'll do his whole scheme, etc., with hiding Binyamin's cup, hiding his cup with Binyamin, to bring the brothers together, to give them a chance to redeem themselves. Again, what Yosef's up to, his goal is not to tease his brothers, his goal is to unite them and put them in a position where they can do root tshuva. That's going to be Yosef's plan. But Yosef realizes now that he's a Bechor, and once he remembers his dreams, he's going to act as a family leader to bring the family back together again and keep them united. If you look carefully, it looks like that Yosef's two dreams are basically the two blessings that Yitzchak planned to give Esav. Basically, Esav's blessing was a generation too early. Because what was Esav's two blessings? The first one, Mital Shemai Mishman Eretz, one of financial strength, of grain. The other was leadership among nations and leadership among the brothers. Remember, Yavdu Chamim Yishtapchu Lumim Hevei Gvir Lachecha Yishtapchu B'nei Mecha. The blessings that Yaakov received through trickery, that Yitzchak was planning to give Esav, that Yaakov got in the end, was simply a generation off. Those two blessings of Yitzchak that was planning to give Esav are the blessings that Yosef has in his dream. Because what's Yosef's first dream? We're all gathering the grain, and Mital Shmai Mishman Rov Dagam V'Tirosh is Yosef's first dream. The second dream of the sun and the moon bowing down to him, that's Yavdu Chamim Yishtachva Lu'umim, other nations will bow down to you. And Hevei Gvir Lachecha Yishtachva B'nei Mecha, that's exactly what happens with Yosef and his brothers. So it looks like Yitzchak was sort of a generation, had the right idea, was simply a generation off. And the drama in Sefer Bereishit is all pointing to one of the big themes, that God wants 12 tribes. He doesn't want, we're one nation, but we're 12 tribes all encamped later around the Mishkan, meaning 12 different flags. You can have different ideas of how to be the Jewish people, how to accomplish to serve God. But by being a model nation for other nations to learn from, the nature of society is people have different hashkafot, different ideas of how to run economies. There's conservatives, there's liberals, there's right-wingers, left-wingers. There's different approaches how to run society the best way. God wants all those different opinions, sort of like God sort of setting up a stage for the advantages of pluralism, where people can have different ideas and different approaches, but if they can work together with a common goal, if your common goal is to be God's nation, to be a nation serving God, you can have 12 different flags, but with good leadership and one common goal, each tribe can take its strength and work together with the other tribes to become God's nation. And in that way, we build a stronger nation, and we become a model that all the nations can learn from. Instead of being nations fighting with each other, we can be mishpachot adama, and we can bring blessing, v'nivruchu b'cha. Through Am Yisrael's acting properly, there can be blessing for all the families of the earth. Instead of the nations fighting with each other, they can be like one big family, a family of nations, where each nation can have its different approaches, different culture, different approaches to society and to life, and understanding of how to accomplish goals, but we can work together for the common good of civilization. And hopefully, if Am Yisrael is a model in their own behavior, we can be that model for other nations to learn from. We're quite far away from that today, but hopefully we can go in that direction. And in that way, the tension in Sefer Bereishit and the drama might carry a very deep message for all future generations of the Jewish people, how to deal with the advantages of 12 tribes or having different opinions within one Jewish people, but respecting other people's opinions, working, not seeing the other as an enemy, but the other as a partner, and sharing ideas, arguing mutually, with mutual respect with one another, and taking advantage of different approaches to build a strong nation. Hopefully we can take that message and bring forward the concept of Geula, of redemption in our own days. Everyone, have a wonderful week.